Hey everybody, Kyla at the MJC again, and I'm here to walk you guys through the last of our sections on the stipulation. So this video is going to be about the sections to modify placement and custody. But before we get into the form, as always, I just want to remind you that nothing in these videos is intended to be legal advice. Obviously, it's a video, so I'm not able to analyze your specific situation, to tell you whether a stipulation is the right form for you, to tell you whether a court's going to approve your stipulation, or be able to make sure that what you're agreeing to is in your best interest. So if you have any of those sorts of questions, we would recommend talking to an attorney. Here in Milwaukee, you can get brief legal advice for free through the Marquette Volunteer Legal Clinics. If you aren't in Milwaukee, then you may want to contact your clerk of court to find out what pro se resources are available in your county. All right, so on to this section. One thing I will say before we get started is custody and placement are confusing terms. Here in Wisconsin, when we talk about custody, what we mean is decision making. So custody is deciding is being allowed to decide where your child should go to school, or who their doctor is, or what religion they are, or whether they can join the military or get married, or all those sort of decisions that parents make for their children. Just decision making power. Physical placement is what talks about who a child lives with and when they spend time with the parent that they don't live with. So when they visit with that parent and what sort of schedule they have between the two parents. So again, placement is where the child is located, where they live, and where they spend time. Custody is just decision-making power. All right, so if you're wanting to talk about either custody or placement in your stipulation, you'll check number 4 for the custody placement sections. And again, you only have to fill out one or the other. You're not required to fill out both, but you can fill out both. And we'll go here for the physical placement section. On the first line, you're going to list the child or children who you want to change the placement for. So in our sample situation, those of you who've been following our series of videos know that Sally Smith is the child in our case, and she's the child that John and Jane want to talk about in this stipulation. If you and your ex, you and the other parent, have multiple children together, but you only want to talk about one, you only need to list the one child here. If you have multiple children and you want to talk about both of them, or all three of them, or however many there are, you'll list the children here. So if John and Jane had another child, let's say they also have Susie, then you would list, and I've got a little space there. Then you would list the other child here as well. So we've got Susie Smith. So again, just the children that you want to talk about in that line. So next you're going to decide which of these applies to you. And most people are going to be in one of 1, 2, 3, or 4. And so with these, you need to know what your current order says to know which of these to pick. Because as you can see, they say going from primary placement or from shared. So you want to check your most recent order about placement to see what is currently ordered in your case for placement. And then it also says going to. So if you want to go to primary or to shared or to whatever it is you want to go to. So the first one is if you're going from primary with one parent, so mostly with one parent, to primary with the other, that's mostly with the other. 2 is if you're going from shared placement. So remember, or you may remember from one of our earlier videos, that shared placement is a situation where the parent with less time has at least 92 overnights in a year. So you're going from one of those situations to primary with one parent. Number 3 is if you're going from primary with either parent to a shared placement schedule. And then number 4 is if you just want to change your placement schedule. You can see down here we also have number 5. Number 5 is if you are agreeing with the other person to have placement with one or the other of you be supervised. So that's pretty unusual in the stipulation. And 6 is other. So if you have anything that doesn't fit into those categories, it'll go into 6. Most commonly what we see people do in 6, or an example of what you might do in number 6, is if you want to talk about exchanges, so like where you'll exchange the child. So if I wanted to say, my ex and I are going to exchange the child at the McDonald's on 6th Street instead of at my house, or whatever that may be, you can do that under number 6. All right, so looking up here, if we said in one of the previous videos that John and Jane have a primary placement situation, so it's primary placement with Jane, and they want to go to a shared placement schedule now. So we'll check number 3. And then in this hidden line here, if you checked any of the boxes in 1 through 4, in this line here, you're going to put what the placement schedule will be. So here I've said that John and Jane are going to have shared placement, but we haven't said anything about when each person will have the child. And so that's what we can do in this section here. And so in our situation, they're going from a situation where it was primary with Jane and they're going to shared. And now we know it's going to be placement with, we'll say, with father, Friday through, or we'll do Friday at 5 p.m. to Sunday at 5 p.m. and then with all other times. So this is an example of what you could do. Obviously, you're going to do what you guys have agreed to in your situation, but an example, some things to note about this. You want to be as specific as you can with the schedule, because when the court signs off on this, it becomes your new order. And obviously you and the other person are agreeing right now, and we hope that you continue to agree in the future. But if for some reason down the road you guys aren't agreeing, you want this to be really clear if you're trying to enforce it. So it's much easier to prove or to show that my child wasn't with me at Friday at 5 than it would be to show that my child wasn't with me at a reasonable time. And so obviously you'll want to do this section to suit your situation, but as much as you can, and I see I've got a typo here, as much as you can, you want to be relatively specific about what it is you're agreeing to, as specific as you can be. If you're doing any of these, you can check these as well. And we could do 1 through 4, they're pretty, you can only usually check one of 1, 2, 3, or 4, but you might also check 5 or 6. So maybe John and Jane want to agree, that exchanges will take place at McDonald's on 6th Street. So maybe they want to talk about exchanges as well. They could have that be part of their stipulation. You don't have to if you don't have something there, but it is something you could put in this section if that's what you're agreeing to. All right, so that's placement. And then here is custody. Again, custody is just decision-making power. Again, we're just going to put the name of the child or children that the parties want to talk about. So here, in this situation, maybe they only want to talk about decision-making power for Sally Smith, even though up here they talked about Sally and Susie. So it's just whatever children you want to talk about there. And decision-making power, again, you have to know what you're going from, because if you already have sole custody with one person or the other, you're probably not going to sole custody with that person again, or if you already have joint custody, you don't need to go to joint custody. But in our situation, based on the order, so again, if we sat down and read John and Jane's order, it says that Jane has sole custody, so she's the only one who can make decisions, and they want to change that. They want to make that so that both of them can make decisions, and so that would be number 1. 1 is joint. If you're wanting to make it so that only one or the other of you can make decisions, then that would be under the sole custody section, and then you're going to put the name of the parent here. So if they wanted to make it so only John could make decisions, they would put that there. There is an other section here if what you're trying to do doesn't fit cleanly into these categories. That's not something we see a whole lot, but if your particular situation is a little bit more complicated and you need an other line, that's available there. And then that's it for the custody and placement sections. And that takes us through the substance of the stipulation. Thank you for all of you guys who have been watching these videos. And we'll have one more with directions on how to file the stipulation here in Milwaukee. I hope this video was helpful for you. If you still have questions, you're always welcome to visit us in the Milwaukee Justice Center, which is located in room G9 of the Milwaukee County Courthouse. Thank you guys, and good luck with all of your forms.